Today I'm going to give you the retirement advice that no one will tell you. As the owner of a financial planning firm, my team and I have guided many clients through the trials and tribulations of retirement. And look, retirement is not as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of information out there that will set unrealistic expectations for retirement. Well, in today's video, we're going to solve this. I'll be sharing with you 12 minutes or so of brutally honest advice for retirement that you'll need to hear to improve your retirement. So let's get right into it. The first of three areas is about spending, and the brutal truth is that the 4% rule could ruin your retirement. So there's a statistic out there that really scares me. On average, across all wealth levels, most current retirees still had 80% of their pre-retirement savings after almost 2 decades of retirement. When I shared this stat in retirement class, I asked, is this good or bad? I think it's bad for reasons I'll share momentarily, but first, let me define the 4% rule. This rule was created by William P. Bengen in the 1990s. Bengen proposed that individuals could prudently withdraw about 4% from their retirement savings annually without depleting their funds over a span of approximately 30 years. And this would account for both favorable and unfavorable market conditions. Here are 5 reasons why I don't think you should stake your retirement on a rule of thumb, in particular this one. Number 1, employing a percentage-based approach to determine acceptable spending is rooted in probability, as it considers the likelihood that historical returns will mirror future outcomes. There are no guarantees. Number 2, as we age, we slow down and by nature spend less. The effect of this can be an overestimation of your overall cash needs in retirement. If we make the assumption that our spending will remain constant or follow a linear pattern throughout retirement, we may find that our quality of life is diminished during the initial years of retirement, when we're typically in better health. Number 3, these sort of systematic withdrawals don't guard against longevity risk and the risk of running out of money. Number 4, you'll likely leave a bigger estate, which is fine if that's your goal, but that's often not the goal. And number 5, you cannot deviate from the plan. So what can you do instead? I find that it's prudent to approach financial planning with a personalized strategy that takes into account your unique circumstances and goals. I know that sounds cliche, but it happens to be very true. Relying solely on general rule of thumb guidance may not provide the level of confidence and security you seek to feel comfortable in the future. And I promise you will not live your life to the fullest. These probability-based percentage withdrawals have a place, and I do use software that views retirement spending this way. However, I am much more inclined to push the envelope a bit. So I want you to ask your advisor or ask yourself if you're the do-it-yourself type, how much can you spend, rather than accept a potentially outdated rule of thumb that may underestimate what you can spend in retirement. The second area where I'd like to share the brutal truth is that you could get trounced by timing. Let's start with a concept economists call the lump sum illusion. This is when retirees see their account balances or pension amounts and think, I'm rich, because they like the number. However, it's not the size of your nest egg that matters. It's the annual income it generates. In retirement, what determines your comfort isn't your wealth, but your income. That's why I emphasize creating reliable income streams. Without them, you risk being affected by timing risk, also known as sequence of returns risk. Here's an example. During your working years, the idea is to save as much as you can so your nest egg accumulates. Rates of investment return will vary, but because you aren't using your savings, the timing of the good versus bad markets is not important. For example, if you start with $100,000 and the next 3 years the returns are, in year 1 a positive 5.49, year 2 negative 38, year 3 positive 26%, after 3 years you're going to have $82,409 left over. But what if we switch up the returns a little? Let's just reverse the returns in years 2 and 3. Year 1 a positive 5.49, 2 a positive 26%, year 3 is the negative 38%. After 3 years, you also have $82,409. It's the exact same amount. When you're working, the order of returns is not important. Unfortunately, about 5 years before you retire, everything changes. Of course, solid returns are preferable. However, the sequence or timing of these yearly returns carries a lot more weight as you approach retirement than the actual percentages. Poor returns at the beginning of retirement can change your retirement forever. So what do you do? Well, the key is You never take risks with money you need to pay your bills. Let me back up a bit. You don't need all your money on day one of retirement, right? The day you retire? Well, many investing models focus on asset allocation or finding the right mix of stocks and bonds and alternative investments based on your risk tolerance. But here's a thought. If you don't need all your money on the first day of retirement, why treat it all the same way? Let me share an example from my life. When my sons were younger, I set up 529 college savings plans. I expected high tuition costs, but all three ended up going to the University of Illinois, which costs a little bit less than expected, leaving us with extra money in their 529 plans. Now, I have two options: leave the money for my future grandchildren's education or withdraw it. And then I would face a 10% penalty on the gains plus taxes. Yikes! Since I won't need this money for a while, if ever, it makes sense to invest it aggressively. Similarly, for retirement, money needed in the first 5 years should be invested more conservative. Time-weighted segmentation strategy divides retirement into segments with different investment objectives. And this allows long-term money to stay in the market for growth potential. But we don't take risks with money we need to pay our bills. This way, you won't get trounced by timing. The last area of concern for today's video is healthcare costs. It has the potential to kick your ASS. For this, I'll share another experience from my personal life. Last year, my in-laws spent more than $25,000 per month on healthcare for a 3 to 4 month period. I didn't misspeak there. Last June, my mother-in-law broke her hip and spent most of the month in the hospital and rehab. She was the primary caregiver for my father-in-law, who suffered from Parkinson's and dementia before he passed away. During those months, there was a rotating cast of caregivers in their house providing care, which led to some mind-boggling invoices. And this may sound strange, but they were lucky. My father-in-law had long-term care insurance. The benefit was about $6,000 a month. Now, over on my side of the family, things are not much better. My father's advancing dementia requires a ton of care. Will you need help in the future? I don't like to make predictions, especially about the future, but many of us will need help of some sort. The question is, how much help will we need and how will we pay for it? Nearly 70% of retirees will need some type of long-term care, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. According to Morningstar, 52% of people turning age 65 will need some type of long-term care services in their lifetime. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Many people think Medicare will step in and pay, but it won't. Medicare does not cover most long-term care needs. It only provides limited coverage for short-term stays in skilled nursing facilities or home health care after a hospital stay. For extended care, such as help with the daily activities of living in a nursing home or at home, other options like Medicaid or private insurance are needed. Healthcare costs can deliver a brutal blow to the gut. And it's not just the expense later on in life. If you save too much in reserve for medical expenses, it will reduce the amount you can spend on things and experiences that make you happy earlier in retirement. As you can probably tell, this is a topic of great importance for me. I'd like you at least to understand the options if this is a risk you want to take off the table. I find that there are 4 common methods for addressing these expenses in your financial plan. I'll share this with you, and then I'll share what my wife and I did in this area. You can self-fund or pay for long-term care costs yourself, which is what most people do. You could also buy traditional long-term care insurance, which is what my father has, but it's really not marketed much these days. You can consider buying life insurance with a critical care rider or asset-based long-term care insurance. That's what Jill and I did. My purpose here is not to get into the weeds. It's to recommend that you make time to understand your options and appreciate how these costs might affect your future. It's likely, unless you know someone who is as obsessed with this subject as I am, that your retirement plan is missing the mark when it comes to everyday healthcare costs in retirement. To gain some clarity, let's look at an example of healthcare costs on a yearly basis for a pair of 77-year-olds. Some of their medical expenses will come directly out of their Social Security benefit, and some will be out of pocket. There's Medicare Part B, which is $293 per person per month, or over $7,000 for the year. There's Medicare Part D, which is $107 per month. Medicare Part D pays for things like prescription drugs. There's Medigap, which is $333 per person per month. So Medicare won't pay for everything. So you'll probably be on the hook for additional doctor services and tests, additional hospital services, and perhaps even additional prescription drugs. This could be an additional over $6,000 for the year. Add all this together and you get to about $24,000 for a couple at 77 years of age. And that's just for 1 year. So here's why I think many retirement planning software programs miss the mark. If I ask you how much you want to spend in retirement on a monthly basis, you might share a general number, let's say like $6,000. When I ask clients this question, I can see them sort of tabulating their normal spending costs in their head. Mortgage, taxes, travel, entertainment, things like that. But if they're paying the kind of healthcare costs I described above, they're going to be spending considerably more than they would have figured on. The number in their head is $6,000. So the reality is more of their monthly expenditures are going to go towards medical expenses than they think. So you need a plan of some sort, or at the very least have a conversation with your family about how care will be rendered and paid for in the future. So that about wraps it up for today. Be sure to use some of the tips mentioned in the video to help with your retirement planning moving forward. Those are just some of the tips and strategies I'd recommend, but there are so many others to take advantage of, most of which I share with my clients. I give them a full step-by-step walkthrough to help with their retirement planning and how to maximize their savings. If you're interested in learning more and getting help with your own financial planning, go ahead and click on the link below and schedule a complimentary consultation with me. Thanks for watching.